Any other questions that you're dying to ask about winemaking, Atwater, anything like that, please let me know. Like I usually do with everybody else, as Rob and Paul and Brett know, we're going to go through. I got a little. Amy, my lovely wife, has put together a PowerPoint with some of this tech info, so you guys can like look around at it. We're going to bring that up and go through that. I'll go back and forth as far as looking at that and being off of that. And then, like I said, at the end, it's only us all hanging out here drinking. So anything you guys want to talk about, I'm basically here until you guys are bored with me and we've gone through all these wines. I can't say I'm going to be here if you guys keep opening up bottles and continuing, but at least to finish these bottles we all have here. These are just for
want to make sure your
display.
headache went away from when we were there a couple weeks ago.
That's right. Yeah, I was not feeling very well. Yeah, you guys had a nice Thursday. I missed out on that. I'm not going to be drinking any of these bottles. I have my glasses here, so you don't have to keep up with me here. I'm not going to go through them all. I do have a sneak peek at a bottle here that we just bottled, just so you guys know what's happening. I'll bring that out later as a special guest appearance. We always like special guests. So let's get started. Any pre-questions before we get started? No? All right. I got a good lineup of stuff. We have one that's been around for a little bit and then a bunch of new stuff here. So let's get started. I'm going to bring up my...
So the slides first have some pictures of the vineyard right now
Yes.
before the wines.
Yes, I've seen that. It looks beautiful. And we're going to share my screen here. And we're going to share this here. There we go. Can you guys see that slideshow there?
No, it's not yet.
On slideshow.
It says that you started screen sharing, but it doesn't show anything.
How about this?
There's double click to enter full screen mode. Do we? No, that didn't me. No, just still black.
You share. I think it's taking a second. I think there seems to be a little slow connection on my end.
Oh, there we go.
You guys see it?
We got it. Vineyard update.
Okay, perfect.
It's not supposed to have those weird boxes. I'm sorry.
Those boxes? Oh, I thought that was part of the design. So you didn't have to say anything.
No, well, I think that's where he's got stuff on his screen that he's not sharing.
I get it.
Okay. Hey, look at vineyard pictures. When was this, Amy? Is this just this spring?
No, this was about a month ago. So these were the first appearance of bud break. So this was the beginning of May. And I think this was Syrah.
All the babies are much bigger now.
Yeah.
And we've gotten to June 1st, which is always a good thing. Not that some kind of weird thing could happen, but
okay, so these were
no early frost or late
frost. These were taken last week.
There you go. There's some baby little grape flowers getting started there. Those are the baby clusters. They still haven't flowered out yet, but those will eventually all be grapes. To give you a sort of size comparison to the leaf there. Ah, yes, we got a bunch of new plantings. So we just planted a bunch more Blau, another acre of that. Oops, there we go. there. So we have what we end up having to do with this new planting. The property has been, over the past couple of years, we've been doing a lot of work with redoing a lot of the vineyards. This is one of them on the south side of the farm. There's another pond down there. But what we end up doing is putting all this new drainage tile, and aerating the soil, replowing all this stuff up, putting it under cover crop. The idea here is grapes don't like to be have their roots saturated or wet in pools. So putting in all this drainage tile helps keep any water from sitting and gets it out of the vineyards when you don't need it. So too much water, if it sits there, if there's pockets of sort of water, they just don't grow as well. So we get this nice aerated soil. We just had cover crop on these. We just plowed all this up. It is ready to be planted. And you see the flags there they got probably for, this is when they were getting ready to, we have a machine. You'll see that in some pictures here. A planter comes out. It's a group of, they do this all around the Finger Lakes and down through the country. They come out. They have a GPS guided system. They get themselves lined up, and once they're all lined up and ready to go, they're going to start planting these really straight rows with the GPS. And you'll see that as we go along, but this is just prior to them doing it, I believe. So just had bare land. And here's the machine. It's got, you can see there's the bare rooted grapevines. It's upside down in this photo. The grapes are sticking. The upside is down there. So those are the roots up, sticking up in the air right now. And they're just bare rooted. So this is rootstock that's different from the actual grape. That sort of, if you see on the bottom there, the sort of clubbed end opposite the roots, those are where the grafts are. And the graft would be the whatever grape you're wanting to grow, and that would be for this Blaufränkisch. The rest, the rootstock, is from a specific stock that does well in this region. It can be paired regionally. They can also pair specific rootstock for some kind of traits for plants that might have over vigorous green growth. They can also change the rootstock to be help with that, so the plant's not as vigorous if you want it. If it gets a little bit too much green growth, you want to put it more towards the grape growth. There's ways to do that. For the most part, what we use is a specific rootstock. I think this might be 3309. It's a good one for our soils and for most of our plants. But you can tailor rootstock to your region as well as the grape and other conditions. And there's one planted. It doesn't look like much. Once they're in the ground, unless you got markers, and they will be putting grow tubes on these, or little sort of plastic tubes to protect them while they're budding out. They're still going to have to process the land. They might have to put down some fertilizers and things. So they'll put these grow tubes on to protect them till the actual growth starts. But right when they put these in, it doesn't look like much. It's just basically a stick on the ground. You wouldn't, if you were just walking, you probably wouldn't even see these. The poles and the wires will be put in later, probably at the end of the season. So right now, it's just going to be these sticks in the ground, and then they'll put these grow tubes on with another little stick that just holds them up. And if you guys, club members, haven't had really anybody signing up, but we were doing the fall, harvest jubilee. We're doing a spring jubilee in a couple weeks here. If you guys want to sign up, Amy's got a little code there. But that's a vineyard tour, special snacks, pairings. Probably look into the vineyard. We'll have some barrel samples and all kinds of fun stuff. So we'll take a look at the vineyards, how they're doing, all the growth. So if any of you guys are interested, please sign up. If I don't get anybody signing up, we're going to have to cancel it. So please tell all your wine club friends. You can bring some family members too if you want to get them engaged into the wine club family here. And here we are. We're to the wines. And have you guys been waiting to drink, or you guys already been drinking?
We have,
drinking.
we have the dry Riesling. We drank a Cuvée Brut bubble earlier, so we didn't want to do another bubble. So we're in the
Okay.
dry Riesling.
All right, good. Well, we're going to start with the bubble. Here we go. So this one's been out for a little bit. We decided to bring this one back for spring because it's always fun to have this one. And while the other one was getting carbonated and ready, we didn't want to bring that one out yet because it gave it a little time in bottle. So we wanted to bring this one back for its last hurrah before it's gone. Our yearly bubble Riesling. And 23, 23 was we had that late frost. And so we lost our usual vineyard that we would get our bubble Riesling from, which would be our middle block Riesling. That whole block got decimated by that late frost. So we've been working with Swedish Hill over the years. And we've used some of their fruit Riesling before, and actually it works really well with our for our bubble Riesling. We designate our for our estate Riesling, we designate that as estate. For the bubble, it can be ours, which usually is the middle block. But the Swedish Hill Riesling is very good. They have a really nice site over there, and we really liked the juice off this. So it's higher in the acidity is really nice. It works really well with the carbonation. The idea here is you want a sort of really bright acidic wine to pair. You don't want a overripe juice for sparkling. It should always be higher acidic, lower in sugar for this. So 19.5. That's perfect for sparkling wine here for this style. And all the fruit is from Swedish Hill on this one. Direct to press, so we pressed it right away. This was actually juice. We're going right to press. Fermentation, all stainless. And yeah, 7 months in stainless tanks. So no oak on this. These are all meant to be very bright and refreshing wines. These June 28th, so pretty early in the scheme of things. 434 cases.
So George, Jim doesn't have a microphone. So
Okay.
he sent me a message in chat to say that they really enjoyed it and plan to get more.
Of this wine?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah, these are always fun. I mean, we've been doing this for many, many years. It's for me, I've been here over 10 years. This wine has evolved much like many of our other wines over the years. Back in the day, these were off dry. These would have had a little residual in them. This one's 0.65, which is very low. But back in the day, boy, these could be 1.5 or more. Sort of the natural evolution with Atwater wines. There were sort of things that were, I guess, meant to be more like general wines that were sweeter or off dry, sort of like the Stonebridges were. They used to be much sweeter. They used to be, oh boy, some of them were 1.5 residual. Now they're basically
they make good mimosas.
They do, yeah. These are good mimosas. But this one, like everything else, has definitely residual sugars have gone down in these. I like them. I'm not a big fan of too much sweetness. As long as it's balanced, and with these, bright, refreshing, great with mimosas. Yes, we're making those at the outside bar. So if you guys are around for the after hours now, or during the day with the outside bar, we're making fresh orange juice and bubble Riesling together for mimosas. Any questions about the bubble Riesling? I got some here in my glass. I've also used these for French 75s too. So a little gin and some lemon juice, a little ice, French 75, or we call it a Hector 75.
But they really are nice, because in the picture I can't remember what that was that we made, but it had strawberries in it.
Yeah, I don't remember what that was. It looks good though.
It was good.
Some with strawberries. Yeah, we used to make a couple other, we're making a lot more sparkling now. So why this will be staying, Wes, the sparkling program for actually cuvées and traditional method sparkling, we're doing a lot more of that. So, you guys have seen the cuvée that we've had from 18. Every year since we're doubling our production in both those. So it's going to take a little time to catch up to that because we're trying to get these at least over 3 years aged before we disgorge them on the traditional method. So once those start coming out, we'll have a lot more of them, so we're not running out. So
I think the cuvee that Darlene and I had earlier today was a 2018.
yeah, that's the current release. Yeah, we're trying to be able to have that now that we're making more of it, is be able to have a good stockpile so we can age them a good amount. I mean, ideally, 6 years is ideal. We would love to have these at 6 years. They do age. The flavors really start coming out at 3, but you get them to 6 and they're even better. So we're trying to be able to do that. So you'll see more of those coming out over the years here.
We had a 90-degree day down here today, and it paired well with patio and warm.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, nice and cold, making sure it's nice and
Yeah.
cold and
Cold and bubbles.
cold and bubbles, yeah. Okay. There we go. And if no one had any questions on the bubble, we can move on to our lots of information here on vineyards, dry Riesling. Looks like there's one little thing in chat. Let me see what's up in chat. Are you doing French 75s outside? We're not doing them outside. We're doing mimosas, but we have all the stuff out there, so they should be able to do it. If you ask them. I think they still have the recipe from last year. I do them on Thursday nights, but yes. And dry Riesling. Here we are. So this is the second dry Riesling of this year to be released. We have two 23s. And what's fun about this is we have, of course, our estate dry Riesling, which is all our fruit. And then we have a blend of several vineyards here that we get fruits from. So most of our wines are going to be from our fruit, but we have sources that we're friends with, we worked with over the years, that we can get additional fruit from if we wanted to make some more of something. If it's grapes that we don't have here, i.e. the rosé, that Barbera rosé we had from last year. It's often fun if somebody's got something, or maybe they had something extra that they're interested in selling, that we're interested in, is to get that fruit and make wine of it. And it's a great contrast to see how the different farms, how Riesling can be so different. And if you had both at the tasting, if you've been to the tasting room recently and been able to taste both of them side by side, you can see the difference. This one being a blend, we got from all of our friends here, Boland Thomas Vineyards. They have a small Riesling vineyard, maybe I think it's not even 2 acres. They have a little bit of Cab Sauv also. They're over by Hosmer, that going towards Keuka Lake, and they have this nice little farm. And we got some fruit from them on 23. During that, because of that frost, we decided to get some extra fruit so we could make more Riesling. And so we got a couple different places to offset some of the fruit we didn't have, and also so we could make a couple different Rieslings. It turned out that we ended up blending these guys together because we just thought they were better together. Fulkerson had some there too. We got in that year, we also got some Coro Noir from them, as well as some Gruner. Sawmill Creek, you've often seen wines from Sawmill. We've got Cab Franc from them for rosé, Riesling from them for our different dry Rieslings. I mean, that's been going on from Sawmill. We've been getting fruit from them for, 20 over 20 years. Some of the initial fruit when Atwater started, red fruit, back in 99 and early 2000s, early 2000s were mostly Swedish or mostly Sawmill Creek red fruit. So we worked with them for many years. And then Swedish Hill, this was more of that same Riesling that we got from them for the bubble. So there's a little of that in there too.
Sawmill Pinot Green was always really good.
Yeah, no, they have great fruit. Vinny used to get. I used to love. They had their Sauv Blanc from there is really good. We've been getting Cab Franc from them for years when we needed more for like rosé. And yeah, no, they're great people. Like I said, we've known them for years. And so you're getting fruit from places that you trust or know. We know their practices. We could talk to them about when we want harvested, what we're looking for. So yeah, these are all just around the way from us here. And what that does is give us sort of a contrast of this one's not vineyard specific, but just seeing how these different vineyards come together to produce a whole different wine than from like our estate dry Riesling. You could have gone and done all of these as their own, but for us, Wes and myself, I think the idea here is to make the best wine, and so, just because we can do 15 different blocks, that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to. I think we taste through these, we decide, some logistical reasons, but also what's going to make the best wine. And these guys together, we did various trials, and actually these worked out pretty well. We like I said, the Swedish Hill, there was what we put into the bubble, what we had available, we used in this one too. So that's the primary juice in this one. But yeah, they did trials, lots of trials to find these blends.
So was the frost that late frost in 23 less destructive at Cayuga Lake than Seneca?
I don't, it was so sporadic where it hit. Everybody had some damage.
Even on Seneca Lake, it seems like you got hit pretty hard, but others didn't. And
well, I mean, we got hit hard on like one of the vineyards, like that one middle block got hit. And nothing, we got other damage, but nothing like the rest of the stuff down around was pretty, the reds did really well. We had a little bit of Pinot damage up top here, but that was it. And then there's others on like the other side of Seneca that got hammered. So these are, that event was quite strange, and like any frost, it can be, it's not just like, the colored region on the map. It's pockets, depends on a lot of factors about where you're at by the lake. Hell, if you're close to a woods, wherever that, or dips, wherever that really cold air can settle and cause problems. So, yeah, you could be in a spot where you got very little to none, and areas where you just got absolutely hammered. And you'll see these 11.3, so alcohols, all these are 18, 19 bricks. So we're going to be in that lower alcohol range. And that is just fine with me. 0.2 residual, 0.2%, that's dry.
If I may interject for
please,
the uneducated that I am, what is a Brix?
Brix is it's the scale of sugar concentration in juice.
Okay.
So when you hear Brix, yeah, I'm sorry, some of these wine terms, we deal with them so much, you forget that not everybody hears these all the time. Thank you for asking, because there's always somebody else. There's always somebody else that wanted to ask. So, yeah, Brix is a scale.
Okay. Oh, cool.
Like, like any other scale, like temperature or anything else. This is going to give you a sugar concentration. You can use a couple different ways to measure it. There's we use a refractometer, which is going to use light to go through the liquid to see that viscosity, and then gives us a number on a scale. Those are just one ways to do it. There's using what do you call them? The floating scales that float in the wine. They're balanced, so when you float them in a juice, depending on how much they sink, will give you the amount of sugar in bricks. So there's various ways to do it. Some of them depends also on the amount of alcohol. Once alcohol starts forming in a wine, you need different. It causes that viscosity to change because alcohol is now entering the system. So you'll need other measurements to be able to do that. The refractometer doesn't work anymore after you start getting alcohol in wine, so you have to use the floating glass tool to get closer to what the actual levels are, because you are monitoring it as the fermentation takes place, is to see how much sugar is left, and see where the fermentation is going. If it's not progressing, then you may have to intervene. So we're constantly monitoring the fermentations for sugar levels, smells, for how quickly they're moving. If they're not fermenting very quickly, we might not want them fermenting very quickly. So, the bricks level is a sort of it helps us in a couple ways. It's going to help us, when to harvest. Between tasting it and knowing a number, that helps us. And then during fermentation, knowing how that number is dropping helps us too. So all those little scales help us to figure out where we're at in fermentations and harvest.
George, is it safe to assume that for those 4 in the blend, that the numbers that are there were all measured exactly the same method, so that they're like apples to apples comparison?
Yeah, so all juice is going to be measured with that refractometer, at least right off the bat on that day. We might use other methods.
That was the measure on the day it was harvested.
Correct. Yes.
Got it. Okay.
So when you see that in line where harvest date and bricks, that's the day and when we received it at the press deck. So that's our starting number. You can stick with that. Some places might chaptalize, which chaptalize means add additional sugar. Back in the day, you might bring up some of these levels to a little higher. We don't do any chaptalizing anymore. So basically what these numbers are, the harvested numbers, are going to be what we're going to be using. And knowing this number also will correspond loosely to what the alcohol will be. 21.5 bricks is about 12% alcohol. So there are conversions for this, so it also gives you a number to know where you're at in alcohol. These lower 18 is going to be lower in alcohol. These are going to be closer to the 11 or 10 or 11%. 19.5 is going to be close to the 11. So you kind of have an idea of where you might be. They're not direct translations. There are some unfermentable sugars that don't give it apples to, it's not going to, 18.2 is not going to translate directly to an alcohol. That's in case that it ferments completely. You're going to be somewhere in a certain range.
Okay, so if I'm following you, a higher bricks means more sugar. And
Correct.
Since alcohol comes from the yeast conversion of sugar to alcohol, the more sugar the yeast has to work with, the higher the alcohol is going to be. Am I following correctly?
That's correct.
Okay.
And you may want to stop that too. We do that with our Cabernet Riesling. So the Riesling will stop the fermentation. So we'll be looking, tasting it, and deciding what the acid is balanced with the sugar. We will stop the fermentation. So that means the yeast, we stop it's not always easy to stop them because they're very hungry little savages. But once you stop them, now there's residual sugar. The alcohol is going to be lower because you've not converted that sugar to alcohol. So like in our Riesling or off-dry Riesling, in that style, we'll stop it. There still might be 2.7 or 2.8 residual sugar. That means the alcohol is probably going to be in the 10% range or lower because not all that sugar got converted to the amount of alcohol that would have been. So yeah, these numbers are all just sort of gauges for us. Numbers are good to know, but a lot of times you're tasting these too. So taste is just as important as, the numbers give us an idea, but they're not the be all end all of things. Flavors, and depending on what kind of style we're doing will dictate, when we harvest things, when we bring them in. So acidities, there's other measures that we use to make decisions on harvest. The Brix is just one of them. But it's the one most people know because of, sugar. Any other questions on that? Anybody, any flavors or anything about this wine that you guys are tasting right now that, any comparisons to like Atwaters or anything like that you guys want to voice? No. It is quite different. If you do get a chance, if you have them in your collection and you have some friends over, is actually bring them both out and try them side by side. And if you're coming to the tasting room for your next visit, we'll have these for a while. There was a good amount of each of these. You'll see. I don't see oh, here's some more information. I should have went to this page too. There was like 1,000 cases of both of these. So there's a good amount. We'll have these for a little bit. So make sure you give them a try side by side just to just see how different the different Rieslings are. Looking at this continued information here, yeast, we did a couple different yeasts on this. Parts of it was spontaneous. It was our sort of wild ferment. And a couple of these, I think we were working with other people's fruit. So we used some commercial yeast on the Boland and Sawmill and the Swedish Hill. And it went through partial malactic fermentation, which is a bacterial fermentation that reds go through. It gives a little more creaminess to the wine. It breaks down malic acid. And it gives it this nice sort of creamy texture. Rieslings don't always go through it, or not often, because Riesling is very high in acid, and the malolactic converting bacteria don't usually like high acid. But we've had a couple of years now where they're actually partially going through, which is actually, we have sort of encouraged, we actually like that sort of creaminess and texture that it gives the wine. So we haven't been, trying to stop that. You can stop it in various ways with temperature control, as well as there are some products that you can use to stop malolactic fermentation. But for us, if it goes through partially like this, it's actually been, we've actually liked what it's been doing. So aging, they were all separately aged on their lees in their tanks for 7 months. So they sat there as the yeast finished their fermentation, they die. There's no more sugar. The yeast die. They go at the bottom of the tank. As they break down, they release various chemicals that add flavors and texture to the wine. That often adds, like the malolactic, gives it sort of creaminess or this sort of creamy mouthfeel. Most of our Rieslings, we will leave on the lees for some time to do that. I think our style tends to be in that little creamier style. Some Rieslings, if you had, can be really racy and really high acid. I like a little more texture to the Rieslings. Not to say that we don't do those sort of racy ones occasionally, but the past couple of years we've sort of doing more of this sort of creamier textured aged lees aging style.
Yeah, it leaves a nice finish on this one.
Yeah, and that tends to be what we're sort of going for. The Finger Lakes has been doing racy, high acid Rieslings for decades now. There's plenty of those out there, and so for us, having sort of something that sticks out a little bit, sort of fills another gap. We really like doing. And I said it's not something that we wouldn't do maybe some of those other styles, but right now this is what we've been doing in the cellar.
George, there's a question. Do the winemakers stir the lees when they age on the lees?
We do. We don't do a lot of stirring on the whites. We'll do some tank stirring. So we'll either use a big paddle to stir the tank. We'll also use nitrogen. So you hook up nitrogen gas to the bottom valve, and you release a small amount of nitrogen, and it actually will stir a tank. Nitrogen is noble gas. It's inert. It doesn't react, and it doesn't oxidize or carbonate. So it's an inert gas. So it doesn't do anything to the wine other than just moves it. So you can use it. You can use these inert gases. Nitrogen's the most economical for that. You can use argon and things like that, but those are a little more expensive, and you don't really need that. Nitrogen's perfect. We use it to stir our tanks often. CO2, which we use sometimes for protecting oxygen off the headspace. If you were to do that, you're basically carbonating your wine. So we don't use CO2 for stirring because we don't need to add any more carbonation to things. But nitrogen doesn't do anything to the wine, and it just helps stir the wine. You can use it as a protectant in a tank that's not completely full of wine, because oxygen will oxidize wine. It's lighter than air, so you have to have the tank completely purged of oxygen. So it's not the best for the headspace. We use CO2. CO2 is actually heavier than air, so it'll blanket the wine and protect it from oxygen. Sulfites will do that too. So we add sulfur, and that helps protect the wine from oxygen. But if it's a tank that we have some headspace, we'll add those inert gases too to protect it. It's easy and economical, and doesn't do anything to the wine, so it's perfect use. Barrels we do. So if we have barrels that are on lees, we will stir the barrels. You stir them for a point, and then you sort of start slowing down. So early on, you'll stir the lees maybe once a week, and then you'll start backing off as the aging process stands. And then eventually they will sit back onto the bottom of the barrel or tank and basically settle out. You will eventually want them to settle. So when you're aging it for a time, you want to clarify the wine. So at some point, they're going to continue breaking down, but you also want them to settle down so you can separate them out. If you were just to keep stirring and then try to filter them, you'd clog up your filters. And then the wine would be very cloudy, which I'm not against, but that is sort of how we, the process of stirring eventually, and then slowing down and then stopping, and getting it prepared for bottling. Any other questions about the dry Riesling? All right. Move on to the big reds. Here we go. Okay, Blaufränkisch. It's been a while since we've had Blaufränkisch. I know we didn't have any. We had some in 2020, I believe. We have some in 22. Yeah, I remember if we had in 22. 22 is a drought year. We probably didn't. I think it went to rosé. So it's been a bit since we've had a varietal. Blau, also for those, it's also known as Lemberger. We use the Austrian name. Lemberger is the sort of German name for it, but same grape. We have a bunch of Austrian grapes, so we just go with the Austrian name. I like the sound of it better than Lemberger anyways. And we just actually, that planting you saw, that was the Blau. That's another acre of Blau. So we'll have, boy, it's not quite 2 that we had. So we'll have not quite 3 acres of it, which is great. We've been wanting to plant more of it. And finally, after all that work in the vineyards, we planted that other acre. So all that work that we did earlier, I talked about, when you do all the drainage, all that soil work and making the soil better, these new plants that come in, just like the Cab Franc we planted the other year, a couple years ago, when you do all that work, the babies and the vines look beautiful. It's so much different than back in the day. We have put them just in the ground, not done much, and just the difference on their how they start out and how they look is night and day. So all that work we do does pay off. So all those new vines are going to add to the Blau we already have, so we can make more of it. I think what we've been doing as a winery is we had a lot of grapes on a lot of different varietals on a relatively small farm. So we cut back on some of those, and the idea was to increase our farm's fertility and production, and also to sort of consolidate grapes and what we do best and what we're really interested in. Blau is one of those, and that the idea is to plant more of less things because there was just too many things on this little farm. It's always fun to have a lot of little things, but if you can only make 50 cases of something all the time, it's tough. We want to make more of the things that we're interested in, like Blau. You can't do that if you don't have enough acreage. And this farm is such a beautiful site. We want to sort of be able to highlight that in a more focused approach. And so planting more of this, we pulled out a lot of the hybrids and things that were been here, really old plants that needed to be sort of redone anyways, and planted more of the stuff that we want to plant. So Blau was one of them. This, like most of our Blau, harvest bricks are a little on the lower end for, whoops, where did it go? Oh, there we go. 19.2. For us, I think it was more about a flavor. 23 was a cool, more of a normal year, average year. So we didn't get, too high of bricks. Like 22 was a drought year, so we definitely had higher sugar levels. But based on the flavor and, the harvest, where we were in harvest, it's already October 5th. We decided to pick it then. So 19.2 is the bricks. Acidity 6.8. These are sort of relatively standard numbers for this pH. So no residual sugar, very, very little, 0.01. ABV, you'll see is 10.8. That's on the lower end for reds for us. I think, Wes's philosophy, as well as mine, is to sort of produce wines that are indicative of the vintage or reflect the vintage. And in a cooler year, sort of standard year like this, you could add chaptalized, you could add sugar. We did that for many years. Most places will do that. I think the philosophy has been, let's give a true representation of the vintage. When you do add something, you do sort of change the balance of things. These grapes went through the season and were balanced in this way. You add too much sugar, it does change the sort of structure of things. So the idea was to be a little bit more true to the vintage. So not worrying about adding sugar. We're looking more for flavors and expression of the grape. This one's all Pied de Cuve, which is basically like a starter culture. So we would do this now with almost everything now. Spontaneous wild ferment. We harvest some early grapes and we put them in a bin and we just let them naturally start fermenting with whatever yeast is on them in the vineyard. We keep feeding it, sort of like a sourdough yeast, and you keep feeding it more grapes, and then you keep using that to inoculate all of your different fermentations. It's nice because you got to start a culture that's already active and ready to go. Helps avoid some troubles that you can have by waiting for a new culture to start. So that's pretty much with most everything now that we do that. So that Pied de Cuve starts off in a little bin, and then over time gets in a little bit bigger bin, and then we just take a bucket out of it, and dump it into the next fermentation. And then it starts getting a little low. We just add some more grapes. And that's worked pretty well for us. The fermentation itself, a lot of these reds, we will add stems and whole clusters. So this one was 84% destemmed, which means we ran it through a machine that takes out the stems. And 16% was whole cluster, which means we hand harvested some grapes with the clusters and just dumped the whole cluster into the fermentation. And these were left to ferment with the whole clusters and those destemmed grapes for 25 days. The idea of leaving stems in, stems do have certain tannins, and they do have, I believe it's potassium that has like color stabilization too. So natural, using those sort of natural things that are in the stems to help with the fermentation, and also to bring some more sort of tannins, different type of tannins into the mix. We do that with things like Merlot, Syrah especially, Pinot Noir. We don't tend to do it with the Cabernets, but in all these other grapes like Blau, we do use the stems as a part of the fermentation, a part of our style. There's going to be a neutral French there. That's a new spelling for French. I take it.
Yes, it's my creative expression of French spelling.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Frank. And Hungarian oak. So these are all old barrels. The idea is we're not interested in the oak flavor per se. We're interested in the sort of small fermentation, warmer fermentation, and also the breathing that natural oak does. Oak is a natural product. It's wood, so it does let in small amounts of oxygen, small amounts of air. So that helps soften the wine. And that's mostly what we're interested in. And each barrel is a small vessel. So you're going to get different fermentations in each of those barrels, or different aging in each of those barrels. So that whole adds to the sort of complexity of wine, putting them in different things like this. You will taste through a lot of these barrels, and each barrel will have its own unique sort of profile, even though it's the same harvest, same everything else. Each barrel is different. They all have different tightness of oak, and just have different qualities that bring in oxygen, that each one becomes slightly different. So that all helps in sort of creating a wine with different structures and different unique flavors. I think the idea here is we're using these old barrels because we're sort of focusing, as we talked about with the yeast and sugar, on bringing what this vineyard brings, and not worrying about bringing in all those oak flavor. I want to taste the fruit itself. Oak is, originally was just as a vessel. It does add some fun things to it, but for us, I think the idea are sort of bright acidity and really bright fresh fruits will get masked if you use too much heavy oak on them, and that's not what we're going for. for bigger, heavier wines, Californias or the desert regions of the world, they're often so tannic and so high in alcohol that aging them in maybe newer oak, it's a little bit better balance there. But for us here in the Finger Lakes, a lot of new oak is going to sort of unbalance the wine where you're just going to taste wood and not really, and sort of mask the really things that are great about a cool climate red. So for us, they're only used for their main purpose of aging the wine. Malactic, all the reds that will go through malactic for the most part. This is naturally allowed to do that. You can add malactic bacteria, which is something you can, just like commercial yeast. Wes has been doing where he lets it naturally go through malactic. And we will test for that at the end to make sure it's gone through before we bottle. If the thing about wines, red wines, once they've gone through their major fermentation and their dry wines, they've gone through malactic fermentation, and there's no more malactic. There's nothing really for anything to bacteria or things to eat, and it's basically, and then the alcohol stabilizes the wine. So you don't really have to do a bunch of filtration. You don't have to sterile filter these wines to get out bacteria and things like that because there's nothing left there. It's stable. So we do with our reds, as long as they've gone through all their fermentations, their dry wines, we will do minimal filtration. And if you've seen your Blaufränkisch, I'll show you this a little bit once we get done with the slide here, where I can show my camera. There's a little bit more sediment in this one. It's a little bit cloudy in the glass. I think it was a little bit more than we thought was going to be in there, but the idea here is any filtration anything you do to wine is going to change it in some way. The more you filter something, you are stripping it of some flavors, some colors. And the idea here, and we've done tasting trials, is the more you do that kind of stuff, the more it changes the wine, the more strips it. If we don't have to do it, you're going to get better flavors. You're going to get, less processing is going to be, not always, but, sometimes better. And for these wines, by doing this, our hope is that you're getting more flavors, you're getting less stripping. And for us, I think for us tasting these over the years, that is the case. The Blau had a lot of like smaller sort of particles in it, so it's a little bit cloudier. You probably could have ran it through maybe a little bit tighter filtration pad if we wanted to. But I think the idea here is that, we're trying our best to make as natural wine as possible. I'm not dogmatic about this. If it needed something or it had residual sugar, something that we had to filter, we would have done it. But if we don't have to do it and it's going to make a better wine, then that's the idea here, is to not do it and to go with that better wine. Wes is not worried about it. I'm not worried about cloudiness. I think most people have gotten used to cloudiness in beverages, IPAs and things like that, that it's not seen as, something strange or bizarre. For us, it's a matter of making a better wine. And so we're tasting, most people are tasting in the tasting room. They're not usually just buying this off a liquor store shelf. The idea is they're tasting that difference when they're tasting in the tasting room, and understanding why we make these decisions to do that. I know when I was starting as a winemaker, I was reading about orange wine. That was something I was interested in, and part of the early producers that were coming back to that style were leaving sort of California, sort of in a way that they were they had gotten tired of sort of over processing everything. And orange wines were this sort of natural style where they were going back to basics, back to the origins of wine, and seeing what it tasted like before you did all these over processing things. So you can come to disillusioned with this sort of process, this trying to get the most crystal clear, trying to get the most, and seeing what sort of sort of re-establishing what, wine was and then what you're trying to go for. So I think Wes is doing all this great stuff with trying to do, the idea once again is to make the best wine. If it doesn't taste good, then we're not going to do it. But if we're doing these different things and it's tasting better for us, we're going to do it, regardless of, sort of some of these perceptions that are sometimes pretty ingrained. Wine has been around for a long time. I know I was talking with Amy about this. The romance around wine could be almost sometimes overwhelming. And, you hear people often like, I don't know anything about wine. They feel, sort of disengaged from wine in a way that it seems so complex and so sort of opaque, but it's really an amazing thing. And I think we sort of put on airs sometimes about these things. I think the idea here, the Finger Lakes, you come to all these different wineries here is to make it more accessible and for you to be more engaged and to see, all the great things about it. Scott's asked about the orange wine tasting. Atwater orange wine. We have a bunch of orange wines coming. So I'll finish this and discuss that a little bit. We actually have some new blends. We have 2 in the tasting room right now. So if you haven't been in the tasting room recently, we have 2. Any questions about the Blau?
Just a comment, George, you were talking
Yes.
about not filtering and all that.
Sure.
I noticed when I opened our bottle of Blau, the 23, that
Yes.
just below where the cork was, there's a little film around the neck of the bottle. I'm sure that's what
Yeah.
you were talking about.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, it's
Last week we opened, we were there. In fact, the day this was released, May 15th is when we were up there.
mhm.
Will brought a couple library wines out for me, which I bought, one of which was a 2012 Blau. Oh, we opened that last week. Was that so good? So
Oh,
it
I'm
ages
sure it
well in the
was, yeah.
bottle.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's been fun to be able to bring some of those out. It's sad because we've been bringing them out every club, and I'm like, we're moving through some of these. I'm like, oh, they're as they go. It's always sad to
Hey.
see them go.
Yeah.
You can only
Yeah,
hold
he-
on to them
he-
so
he-
long,
he
and then
brought-
people need
He
to
brought
enjoy
me a
them.
2012 Blau and two, an 09 and something else Syrah that I haven't opened yet, but
I think it's the
I'm
12
waiting.
Syrah. Yeah,
yeah.
awesome. Yeah, no, it's always fun to bring those out. I'm glad. Like I said, you can keep them down there forever, but at some point, it's time. They need to be.
I gotta say
enjoyed.
the Blau aged very well.
Yeah,
now
Finger
that-
Lakes.
Yeah.
Finger Lakes Reds. I think when they're made correctly out here, they're going to peak around 5 or 6 years, depending on the vintage. Some of these can go longer, but you get an 8-year-old reds out here are showing really well. You had that 12. It's just amazing. That's over 10-year-old wines, red wines here. We have bright acidity. We have good acidity that helps stabilize these wines for aging. These can age plenty over 10 years. Rieslings and stuff can age even longer than that. But we're seeing now that people have been doing these for a long enough time, you're seeing a lot more being able to bring out these older vintages and just seeing how well. I love bringing this stuff out. When people come, you talk with industry people and you bring out these things to showcase how well these age. But yeah, it's great. Two very different wines, different. I know. In 2012, that might have been the first from Atwater. I can't remember. I think they planted it in 2010, 2009 or 8. I can't remember when that was. And then 12 was one of the first. No, 10 or 12. I can't remember which year, but one of those were the first.
It was
Blaus.
very good,
Yeah.
and you can taste that. I could taste the difference between that and this one that's 11 years newer.
Sure. Yeah,
That,
you can see. That one would have been in the over 12.
this has a
alcohol.
little. The acidity is a little more noticeable in this one.
Yep.
The 2012 it smoothed out. Oh, it was real nice.
Yeah, the acidity is a little higher from this cooler year. I love Blau. It's got this almost sort of, there's some floral notes. We always get this sort of, it's violets. That comes in the Pinot, and sometimes on a couple of the other wines, we get this sort of violets. This one's got, of course, this great sort of tobacco and blueberry and a little bit of cola. Yeah, and then with that bright acidity, it's so refreshing because these aren't heavy wines. These can be paired with a lot more food options too. Like any of our, especially on this higher acid, lower alcohol, a lot of these reds, especially from the Finger Lakes, should have a little bit of a chill on them. 60 degrees is really cool cellar temp. So, if you don't have it in a cellar that's going to be at that, I would put it in the fridge for 30 minutes or so. Get it down to a little bit cold. It can always warm up. Well, once it's warm, it's warm. So I would serve these with a little bit of a chill on them. I would say any Finger Lakes red. I always say this at these things, and you guys hear it all the time, but even California reds are often served too warm. We should be keeping these a little bit cooler. The cellar temp's not room temp. So, 60, put it in the fridge a little bit, bring it down. Once again, by the time you bring it out, open the cork, pour in glasses, by the time you get it into your mouth, it's already warmed up quite a bit. So chill them up a little bit. And you'll see the difference. You'll get just a lot more brighter fruit. And as it's warming up in your glass, all that aromatic's going to come out. So make sure you get these at good temperatures. It's going to make your wine experience much better. Any other questions about Blau Frankish?
Yeah, I was going to ask. So, and this is coming from, I have more knowledge about like bourbon and those kind of alcohols than
Sure.
wine.
Yeah.
So when you put them in the oak barrels, are you keeping them on site? Are they just going off to like a big warehouse?
No, they're on site. They're on site.
Okay. And
yeah, we keep them here because you need to monitor them.
mhm.
You need to keep an eye on them. I guess you could do it off site if we had our own storage building. So yeah, if we had a separate storage building, like a lot of bourbon producers, whiskey producers, they're going to have a huge warehouse. It's just barrels somewhere.
Oh yeah, they have the huge rick houses. And
Yeah,
I guess
the big, correct.
Yeah, my follow-up question is for the storage, like for bourbons, they have like different flavors come out when they're the really top of the, these 7-story barns versus the first floor. Does that have the same effect on wine or not so much?
Well, heat always does do that. So in the buildings like that, you're having a huge temperature gradient.
Yeah.
And those aren't necessarily temperature regulated.
No.
So wines tend to be, you want them because they're lower alcohol, because bourbons and stuff are high alcohol. You're allowing them to breathe. You're not topping those barrels normally. You're letting the angel share go out.
Mhm.
For wine, you still want to protect them from oxygen. We do top these barrels occasionally.
Okay.
To keep them because they're gonna evaporate. Just the angel share, just like in other alcohols, they breathe, they're gonna evaporate. You don't want too much headspace on wine, so we do top them. You will sulfur and top them and keep them topped up as they're aging. Ideally you want them somewhere with a stable temperature. Under the tasting room, it's half underground. It actually keeps quite cool and mild under there. It's like it's moist. It's moldy. It's the perfect place for wine to be in barrels. We have some in our tank room, and we have some in our Morton building. Most of it's underneath the tasting room.
Okay.
It's a claustrophobic space. It's not something that if we had a fancy place, you'd have a beautiful cellar where you had all this stuff. Unfortunately, these are still farm buildings and we use what we have. And it's actually a really good space for the barrels. It's tight. It's hard to work in, but it keeps them cool and it keeps moisture because it is a sort of basement-y kind of feel. And that helps keep evaporation down because you're not necessarily going into this to evaporate all your wine out.
Yeah.
And so you want in a space You know, Ravines has a huge barn, and under their huge barn, they have a huge space that's underground, and they have misters, and they have like they have a system to monitor the humidity and stuff like that. We don't have that, so we're relying on the natural temps and everything else. But ideally, wine should be in a temperature controlled or a cellar or cave to maintain humidity and temperature. That's
Cool.
ideal for wine. Where whiskey and bourbon, yeah, you have a whole different. You're looking for different things there. You know, you
Yeah.
are using different barrels. You are pulling out barreled flavors.
Yeah.
You are charring the barrels where we will use the barrels that we get are. Oh, they're maybe mild. We don't char like bourbons
Yeah.
and stuff do. So you're not getting those flavor profiles that you're looking for in bourbons and things like
Yeah.
that. But like I said, there are some similar things that are happening in those barrels, just like ours. Oxidization, and there are wood flavors that are coming into from the wood itself.
Cool.
You're going for more of that in bourbon and whiskey than you are
Yeah.
necessarily in wine, but it's still the same sort of things.
Mhm.
At the beginning there, you mentioned monitoring the wine while it's in the barrels. Can
Yep.
you tell us a little bit about what you do to monitor it?
Yeah. So you know, as they, once we press them off, they're going to go into barrels after they settle. They're still going through fermentations. So they might have a breather bung. You've seen the little bubblers. We have these little flapper things. They're still off gassing. So the malactic bacteria that's converting malic acid, that's producing gases. So it's still fermenting. There might still be some residual sugar after the pressing, that after you've done that, all that pressing, there's still a little bit of sugar. You've now energized it. You've given it a little oxygen during the pressing and everything else. You're still going to have fermentation going on. So initially, when you barrel them down, there's still going to be things actively happening. There's still fermentations. They still off-gassing CO2 because even when they stop finishing fermentation, there's still gas that's coming out. So you still need to let them off gas.
Mhm.
So you're going to have a breather bung or a bubbler or something like that. So you're monitoring those things. Once those things are all done, it goes from a reductive to an oxidative state, which means reduction, you had gases and they're not having any oxygen. Once you start get all those processes are gone, there's no more longer any protective gases like CO2 being produced. And so you start getting oxygen starts egressing into the equation. So once all the fermentations are done, you're monitoring the fermentation, checking to see if it's done. Once everything's done and there's no longer any off gassing, it's time to basically bed them down, which means you're going to top up the barrels and you're going to add sulfur. And then you're going to put a solid bung on there. So now you're protecting it. At that point, you now need to start protecting it from oxygen.
Mm.
And so they'll sit in the barrels and they will lose wine or fluid through transpiration through the barrel itself. And you will open them up, taste them, see how they're doing. You're going to then top them, keep that oxygen space out. So that's the next step. After all the fermentation is done, then it's time for more of a protective approach. They're going to sit it with all those lees like we do with the whites. So we're not racking these things, what they call racking, which means siphoning off the wine from the yeast. We're going to leave them in there, at least for our style. We leave them, they compact down. When we're ready to take them out, we don't age these super long. We're going for a bright, fruity, acidic style. We're going to age these maybe 10 months. Things like Cab Sauv or some of the orange wines we may do for 2 or more years. But for our Cab Francs, La Frankish, it's 10 months or less. They don't need to age anymore for us. They're not high in alcohol. They're not super high in tannins. And really, while you're aging them for that long, the idea is to soften those things because they're pretty aggressive. So if we don't have those high things, you don't have to age them for long. The longer you age them, they're going to start losing some fruit character. They're going to get some of those more barrel characters, and that's not what our style is. I know places across the lake like Shaw, everything he does is like 7 years or more. And that's a different approach, and you get a different flavor profile. He's going for a more sort of oxidized style, a little bit more extracted, where we're not going for that. We're going for that fresher style. The longer you're going to age them in barrel, the more oxygen they're going to get, the more oxidized they're going to get. They're going to get a different style of wine. So for us, that 10 months is usually where it's at.
Oh, cool.
They've gotten everything we need them to do in there. They've gone through other fermentations. They've had their aging that we want, a little bit of I can never say it. It's getting a little bit slightly oxidized through the process. And that's basically it. It's sitting on the lees, much like the whites. They're getting some creaminess from the malactic, as well as that breakdown of the yeast. So all those things are going on during that bedding down or aging process. And then they're, by the time, there's also logistics too. It's like, if we wanted to age these a long time, we'd have to build a separate facility to do that. We're happy with where these are, what we want to do. It's time to make space for the next harvest. By August, we're bottling the last of our reds, minus a few things like Cab Sav. If depending on the year, we might leave those, but everything else is going to get bottled. Orange wine, some of the orange wines will stay longer in barrels. Those are off on their own, but for the most part, everything else is going to get barreled or bottled.
So a
Thanks for
minute,
answering
George, the
our
best
question.
part of that is the tasting, right?
That's right. So we got to taste through all these. You can only do 20 barrels. After that, we stop. As we talked about before, it's like
Well, after that, they all
once you
taste the
taste it through
same,
20
right?
barrels, well, yeah. So even if we're spitting, we're not drinking this stuff. Because if we were, we would get nothing done and we would be a mess. So the idea is 20 barrels is a good limit because you're still absorbing the alcohol through your mucous membrane. So your mouth, you're still absorbing it, whether you're spitting it out or not. So once you get through about 10 barrels or 20 barrels, you are, it's going to start affecting you. So you're going to start making rash decisions. You don't want to make rash decisions. And then everyone starts talking, everyone's, gets a little bit more energetic. Nothing's going to happen after that. So basically 20 is the limit we're going to do. For reasons. And we have work to do. Okay. Any more questions on all that stuff? These are good questions. Thank you for those. I like also questions about other alcohols too, because I like those, and there are some similarities and some big differences. So that's great. And I do have a
I've
couple.
noticed that there's every year I come up to the Finger Lakes, it seems like there's one or two more distilleries as opposed to, there's new wines too,
Yes.
but there's more beer, there's more
Whiskey.
yeah, whiskey, yeah.
Whiskey, yeah.
Whiskey, bourbon.
Yeah, that's right. No, you see my little Thursday night cocktail thing. I'm a big fan of other spirits.
Yeah.
We're coming back on July 10th, so hopefully you'll be
Okay.
there.
I just
Yeah.
made, it's the black locust season flowers. So if you look at all the trees with all these big white flowers, those are black locust
Oh,
flowering. They are edible. So if you see them, you can eat them. I don't take any legal responsibility for that. But black locust flower is edible. It's delicious. It tastes like jasmine flavored sweet pea or sweet peas. They're really good. I'm making some black locust flower liqueur, and I'm making some black locust flower simple syrup because I'm going to make some black locust flower gimlets on Thursday. So if you're around.
Well, July 10th is my birthday, so we're definitely going to be
Well,
in town.
we're
Okay.
coming up because J.R. Dill's Beef on Weck is that weekend, and
Yes.
so we figured we'd come up a day early and come in for after hours on that Thursday night.
It'll be a fun one.
All right, good.
Okay, let's see here. Thank you. Okay, we're going to open up for some other questions here. But,
Maybe I'll show this t-shirt.
oh yeah, Amy's got something. Let me get out of this here. Stop share. Okay. What's the t-shirt?
Well, this is a new it's a previous design, but it's a new color. And it's going to be our door prize tonight.
How does
So I'm
that work?
not
How do you win the door prize?
Well, you can't win it, George.
Oh, sad.
Someone will win it, and I will announce it in a minute.
Okay. A couple things now that we're done with that. We did have I didn't have that slide on there, but the fourth wine on the list, we do have the Pinot Noir. So if you come in the tasting room, or it was on the list to order, but the new Pinot Noir is in. So we got 23. There is a 22, but we decided that actually the 23 was ready to go right away. Being from that vintage, 22 was such a big year, we decided that we were going to let that one age a little longer. So that surprise will be down the line in a while. But
will
the
that
23
be
was
like a Case Club member first kind of thing? The 22.
yes, yeah,
Okay.
that might be an only. So there's only 120 cases of it, so that might be.
Yeah.
It's just at the base of what I could release for club. So it'll probably be another fourth wine where anybody can choose it, but it'll be a
Okay.
club exclusive because that one's gonna be. It was just so big and tannic that it needed some time. Quite different from our normal Pinot Noirs, which are very delicate, fruit forward. This one's a little bit bigger. So this one, the new Pinot, it's got our signature sort of violets and stuff. So I would, if you haven't tried it yet, come to the taste room, try it. Showing really well. We had some yesterday. I was tasting with a Sam that runs a sort of program over at Dean Lane's catering over on the other side of the lake, their restaurant, and it was showing really nice. So check that one out. That was also in the club order. Right now, it's just in the club. It's early release. The Blau is on the main list now. Then also, they just bottled the new rosé. So new rosé, probably in a week or two. We're almost out of the Barbera. So as soon as I get to where I just want to keep a couple cases for myself, we're going to be releasing this guy. This is 85 Cab Franc, 15 Blau, similar to our last blending of it. But,
All right, save a bottle for us when we come up the
yeah,
10th.
yeah, there should be plenty. So it's just, they just bottled it last week. So it's going to be released shortly here as we run out of our Blau, our Barbera rosé. Speaking of orange wines, we got, right now we have the Pinot Gris orange wine. I think that's the 21. And we have the Gruner skin ferment, which is a sort of quite different than our Pinot or Pinot Gris. I love that wine. That's one of my favorites. It doesn't look like a normal orange wine. It looks just like a regular white wine. But it's got this really beautiful texture from the skin ferment. Gruner is a very, very green grape. It really has no color to it other than green. So as an orange wine, as a skin ferment, it doesn't really get that orangey color that most of them do get. So it's sort of looking at it, you're like, oh, this looks just like a Gruner. It's not. It's got a lot more fun and texture to it. So check that one out. Those are the two orange wines. We just bottled some new ones. We have a couple different blends coming out. I don't have the blend profile right now in front of me of them. We're worried more about labels. There's going to be a new orange wine label for some of their blends. So like our Simvoli, we're going to have basically a line of premium blends. So we'll have our Simvoli, our sort of non-traditional Bordeaux blend. We have an orange wine blend, which will be called Ektasi. So all these fun Greek names. Ektasi means expanse. And so we have this beautiful expansive view of the lake, of the vineyards. It's also for me, orange wine has this, you know what certain grapes taste like when you have it, make it into orange wine. It has this really big, expansive flavor profile. So that worked well as far as a name. And it's going to be the same label as the Simvoli. It's just going to be orange. So we're going to have a line of those. So we'll have the Simvoli, which is be the red blend, the Actasi, which is the orange blend. We'll have a premium white blend in the future also, which will be in that same line of wines in the same sort of label style. And that one just
Yeah, I
be
was just gonna ask,
white.
because the Symboli has its own distinct label separate from.
Yeah.
Oh,
So these
yeah.
will be the same label. They'll just be
Okay,
different
alright.
colors. So there'll be the Simvoli, which is the blue. We'll have the orange. And I don't know when we get to the white one, we'll figure out a color, whether it's just white or there'll be something else. But
And you'll keep the Stonebridge labels on the Stonebridge white and red, I assume. No?
they're changing. No, they're gonna be
Oh,
changing
okay.
too. Yep, yeah, it's time.
Aw.
It's time. We're gonna be coming up. The wines are gonna be slightly different. They're gonna still be there's still gonna be hybrid blends. They're gonna be in a white bottle. They're gonna have more of an artistic label. There is a tradition of the sort of race car stuff here, but for me, that was more of a Ted Marks. Ted Marks was big into racing out here, and that was more of a Ted's thing back, the previous owners. And for me, as much as I love cars and all that kind of stuff, it doesn't quite fit in with what the other stuff we're doing right now. So the idea was to change that a bit. And I know I'm going to might get a little bit backlash because everyone, there is a lot of sort of nostalgia for those old things. But
Yeah, but it's what the wine tastes like inside the bottle, not what the label looks like.
yeah. I mean, back in the day, people would buy it just because they had a cool race car on it. I was trying to get away from just buying it by a race car label, and people actually like the wine. So we're changing that up a bit, and it's going to fit more in with sort of our style.
So will the name
stuff.
change too? It won't be like Stonebridge white, Stonebridge red?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's been a while for us to figure that out because it was just because once again, we were like, okay, we'll just change the label. And then it's like, all right, what's Stonebridge have to do with this anymore? Yeah. So it
Yeah,
didn't,
if the label doesn't have that Stonebridge on it, then yeah, I understand.
we'll see how it goes. There might be some different iterations as we play with that one a little bit more. But the other the premium blends will stick with that. I really like that blue label. And the orange label is going to look fantastic with that orange blend. So we'll have that orange blend wine. We'll have another, I think there's a Chard Gewurz blend again. So that will have its own label. More of that's our standard label that we've had on those. And then there'll be another Pinot Gris orange wine. We've made a lot of orange wines. They're going to start coming out. So if you like orange wine, Scott, there's going to be plenty of them coming. They're some of my favorite styles. We've made more of them, and it's expanded a little bit. They take some time to age, so that's why they're not always released right away. But there'll be more of those coming out. A lot of unique ones. That blend's really great. This Gruner one's fun for just being a Gruner skin ferment, and I love it. And then we'll have some more of the traditional, bigger style, the Pinot
Gotta
Gris.
put in my plug to bring back the reverts.
The reverts, yeah, there's always the reverts. You have to talk to Wes. You gotta like beat Wes into that one.
I vote for reverts too.
I know you guys. Maybe that's be part. Actually, I think part of what we were discussing with that premium white blend was a sort of Gewurz. It actually would be, I think what we were discussing, what Wes wanted was something like a Riesling Gewurz and Pinot Gris, something like a Alsatian blend. So that might be very similar to what you guys are really liking. So we'll see how that goes. That's going to be something coming in the future. Yeah, I'm going to say it now. Don't get too excited if you're into this, but Wes, once again, I like my cocktail stuff, but Wes made a couple. We had some hybrids. We made some vermouth. So we have a white vermouth and a red vermouth. They're really good. We didn't make a lot of it, but the idea is we have these hybrids, reds, which actually do really well for making vermouth. So he got a bunch of herbs and spices, herbs and spices, and we made some a really good small batch of vermouths too. So that's going to be coming down the line too. I got to make another label for that. My brother will be at least. So that'll be something fun coming up. We had some. We'll probably I'll probably have some in the tasting room in my cocktail regiment coming up. We made some Negronis with them. It's a little darker, so it made a really nice, pretty dark Negroni. It actually was really good in a martini. We made the white vermouth tastes really good in martini. So that'll be another little fun side project we have. It's I don't like getting too many side projects, but that one was actually one that we all agreed on that would be we really like. He also did which will be a couple years left. We really like Vidal Blanc. We use that in some of our whites. We have a friend who's got a vineyard down the road. We got some Vidal Blanc from. It's a really good Vidal, and he made some white port with Vidal Blanc. That's another little fun small batch side thing for mostly that's going to be just club stuff. So you guys will be hitting that when that gets out. So we'll let you know. That'll still be a little ways away, but just as a sneak peek, since for all of us friends here, this small group of folk. So that'll be some fun stuff that's coming down the line. Any other questions?
I was gonna also ask, since just asking lots of questions today.
Sure, yeah, no, you're the question.
But we're coming up for the Grand Prix Festival. Are you guys doing anything for it? I know it's like the weekend after Labor Day.
Which one? What is? That's not the. We don't. I mean, we do. We don't. Grand Prix Festival. I don't know if we're doing. I don't know. Amy, you have to let me know if we're doing anything around that time.
Yeah. We'll be
I
there.
don't know if we're doing anything. We're not doing anything at the festival.
Yeah.
That's okay. I don't think we're doing anything. We usually don't do those like festival kind of things. Usually our kind of style of wine just doesn't fit in with like. It's usually like, let's see how much we can drink kind of thing. And
Yeah.
we like back when they still do the one up at the track. The only stuff we would sell back in the day were all the sweet wines.
Oh no.
It certainly was pretty, and we don't make those anymore. So it was pretty disheartening when you went. No one cared what you were giving them. They're just like, give me whatever. I don't care. Fill the glass. And it sort of,
Oof.
yeah, we hated going to those things. So a lot of those kind of things we don't go to anymore because they're, we're like all excited about our finely handcrafted wines, and then you go to like a drunk fest and you're like, no one cares what it tastes like. They're just like, is it got alcohol in it? More, So we don't do a lot of events like that unless they're very specific. Like if you guys don't have tickets yet, or I don't know if they might be sold, the Rosé Soirée is coming up a couple weeks, a week or two. Soirée is great. We go to that every year. It's very specific. Sure, people get overstimulated by rosé, but it's all dry rosé. That's all they sell. So
Oh, that's cool.
it's a really fun event. It's up in Geneva. So we attend that every year. So that's one thing we like to do. That's one of the few events that we do because it's so specific. It's not just a drinking party where there's like, it's like whiskey and beers and ciders, and it gets to be where some of those things are just basically drunk fests, and they're fun if you're going, but for us, it doesn't make much sense. But the Rosé Soirée is fun for us, and people that you got to be really interested in rosé if you're just going to go to an event that just has dry rosé.
Yeah.
So I think for events that are very specific like that, I do actually like them because, at the end of the event, people are going to get pretty happy and schnockered, but for the most part, people are coming because they're really interested in the style of wine. So I prefer those rosé and it's just fun. We see all of our friends there. A lot of those kind of events, the winemakers don't go to those. The owners don't go to those. It's like you find your staff member goes, hey, do you want to work that event? And if they don't know about it, they go, oh yeah, that'll be fun. But the Rosé Soirée, it's a lot of owners and winemakers. Wes will be there. I'll be there. Amy will be there. Most of the time, you're going to see the owners and winemakers because it's a fun event, and it showcases a wine that that we're really passionate about. We really love rosés out here, and
Mhm.
so making a good dry rosé is something we're really interested in. So that's a great event for us, and we just like going. It's fun. It's in Geneva. It's in the park there. It's really great. So
That's
yeah,
cool.
we as far as the track stuff, yeah, we don't do a lot of those things. We'll probably have some stuff at Atwater. If that's on that weekend, we're gonna have our outdoor bar is gonna be open.
Yeah,
We'll be
we'll be-
open late on all those days. Till 9. All that stuff will be happening at our place. We won't be doing anything necessarily. I like that vintage. We try to get to the vintage one's always my favorite. The vintage.
Yeah,
We have
that's
been-
what
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
going up for.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I
we
like
like
going.
old cars.
Yes. So we go. We'll try to get out of Atwater. I try to get enough staff so Amy and I will go down there
Mhm.
and walk around because it's just fun. I like going down there
Yeah.
for that. So the vintage race, we'll be down there. We won't be pouring wine. I'm going to be enjoying the vintage
Gotcha.
race.
Yeah. Classic cars are great when somebody else is maintaining them.
Correct. That's right. That's right. Yeah, cars. Yeah, it's a lot of work for those kind of things.
Yeah.
I had
Um,
old car a long time ago, and it's amazing how you don't. I had a '62 Corvair when I was 16.
Ooh,
I thought it would be
nice.
the coolest thing, and it was cool. The problem is, you forget old cars didn't have luxuries like power steering, power
Yeah.
brakes,
Yeah.
seat belts,
Safety glass.
safety features. And you drive those things, and it's like they're fun, but boy, it's hard to drive them. You have to brake, twice, further. You have to be thinking about braking a lot sooner. You also,
Yeah.
if you got to try to do parallel park with one of those things, Jesus,
Gotta be a good driver.
you got to be a good driver for them. Yeah. So old cars aren't for the weak of heart, and also just maintaining them, for God's sakes. Yeah, you have to be retired to be able to have the time just to get that nice cloth chamois to constantly chamois
Yeah.
it down.
And
Make sure
older
it's
cars
running.
have clutches too.
Clutches.
Hey, all my
I-
cars have clutches.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but ones that you need to use your left foot for.
Yeah. No paddles anymore. Yeah. No, my old one they have four on the floor. Jesus, that thing was like, yeah, it was fun to drive. So yeah, no, you have to have and it costs a lot of money. So I'm gonna stay away from vintage
That's
cars.
top.
I have my own other hobbies, and those already take up enough. So any other questions about anything that while we're
While
here?
we're unmuted, not a question, but I just want to say I'm really excited to hear you've got some Alsatian style wines coming. I studied
Yeah,
it up.
oh, sweet. Those blends, Pinot Gris, all those, we did some blends of sparkling like that. So Alsatian blends for method. So yeah, we got some of the grapes here. We'll make the blends. There's a reason why they're great blends.
Yeah.
That was some of my favorite cuvées, was those Alsatian blends we made.
Yeah, I
So
think
we'll see how.
they're underappreciated.
Yeah, no, things like Pinot Gris and stuff. We were making them in a more Alsatian style, where you were actually not doing them in the Pinot Grigio style, where you actually age them
Yeah.
on lees, and you make this bigger style of Pinot Gris. We haven't been doing that for a couple of years now because we planted more Pinot Gris. Last year, we actually planted another acre of Pinot Gris. Whether that was a great idea or not, I know the idea was that we are making more orange wine with it. We really like the Ramato style of Pinot Gris, so the orange wine of Pinot Gris. So we planted more of it so we could make Ramato. Whether we make any more of that sort of Alsatian style Pinot Gris just depends on, I know Wes wasn't not his favorite, but it makes in that style is much better. We used to make it in sort of more of a Pinot Grigio style. I felt like it sort of conflicted with all the Rieslings and all the other bright high acid things. That when we started making, I think in 2018 we started making more of an Alsatian style Pinot Gris. It was so much different, so much better. I loved that. Lee's aging Pinot Gris and making it a bigger, more mouthfeel style. I actually really liked it. Whether we do that in the future remains to be seen, but we did plant more of it. for sparkling and also for orange wine. So you'll probably see more of those blends as we progress in the future. I know Wes has ideas, especially on those premium white blends. He's been really itching to make one. So that'll be under the new label style and everything else. So we'll see how that goes. We still are sort of developing sort of a newer Atwater style. We've been doing that since before I took over, and then as I took over, and then Wes came on full as the head winemaker. We've been moving into sort of certain directions, and so some of these things will be, I really love the direction he's taken the Chardonnay in. Is sort of more, but I think for him, he's still sort of developing what he wants. He likes the Chardonnay as is, but he's still on really developing how he wants to keep where he's going with that Chardonnay style. So there's still a couple things we're working on. Once again, vintage variation aside, as a winery, your house style, you have certain things that you do sort of focus towards stylistically. So there may be some small changes even with the Chardonnay that we're working on. Nothing radically different, but you're always sort of tweaking where you're at. And for him, also as a young winemaker is finding that voice. And Chardonnay is for him, I think it's one of those like holy grail. It's such a wine that's grape that's, once again, there's more planted Chardonnay in the world than anything else. I think the idea though is making a good Chardonnay is not easy. Chardonnay, I think for winemakers, is one of the hardest wines to make because it can be relatively bland. I think that's why you had so many California winemakers just making buttery, oaky, because it is like actually getting the nuance out of the fruit is not always easy. And so if you want to make a large batch of it, the best way to do it is just throw as much buttery malactic and oak at it. And then people just think that's how it tastes. That's not Chardonnay. That's the secondary effects. It's wood and malactic bacteria causing those things. And trying to actually get the nuance of the Chardonnay fruit and getting the right clones and everything to actually get these different flavor profiles is incredibly difficult. Sometimes from just the idea of what Chardonnay is, for a lot of people, most people go, I hate Chardonnay because they've only had one kind of Chardonnay. But the world is overrun with different styles of Chardonnay. It's just a matter of making a good one. I think that's always for him, getting that, trying to make that perfect Chardonnay for what he thinks of as a perfect Chardonnay is going to be his sort of, I don't know if it's going to be his white whale, but it's going to be something he's going to be chasing after. So we're going to see, I'm interested to see, how he takes that. I really love the new styles of Chardonnay he's been coming up with. So the 22 is really nice. So that's one thing we'll be working on in the coming years is developing that Chardonnay style. But other than that, I mean, you've seen where things are going and how they're turning out. I'm really pleased with that. I'm busy with everything else. I taste the wines and, I give my feedback when needed, but Wes is the head winemaker and him and Sam are doing some really great stuff. And, I trust them explicitly in what they're doing. And once again, when I need to give my feedback, I'll give it. But for the most part, I've been pretty pleased with where things are going. Anything else? Any other questions? You guys have got a lot of good questions tonight. Thank you.
Well, let me
Paul?
announce
Okay.
the winner.
Okay.
So-
how did you pick this winner?
Well, I picked the winner by using a wheel on the internet that picked a random name.
Really?
Yes. And the random name it picked was Rebecca's. So Rebecca, you wanted the t-shirt. So if you will just message me your address and the size t-shirt you would like.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Congratulations.
You're welcome.
Congratulations.
Yes,
Flip door prize.
congratulations.
Yeah, it's a cool color. Actually, I didn't know it.
Yeah, it really
I
didn't
told Amy to
show.
get the color
Are
And,
they for sale when we're there?
Yes,
yes, they
Okay.
should be. We just got them in, so, yeah, I really kind
they're
of like
on the
that.
website too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're
I
coming up
think
in a
we're-
few weeks, so I'll just wait and get one there.
We're also going to be
Oh, I
getting
like
a couple
the
of
doggy.
vintage t-shirts are coming back too. We have the Seneca Sea Monster one. We brought it back. Yes, if you like that one, we brought it back. We had the original artist. He had to change the logo to the new logo on the bottle the sea monster is. So he changed that for us. So
Oh, cool.
we'll be ordering those. I don't know when, but eventually those are coming back. So if you like the Seneca, look at that big white monster back there. It's Falcor.
What a
Look at-
cutie.
My goodness. Yeah, he just showed up out in the back there. Out of the Great White North. What's his name?
Sorry. So this is Maddie. Yeah.
She's like, what are you guys doing?
She's hot.
She's hot.
Yeah,
She's
I know.
panting a lot because it's well, you mentioned, George, that it was warm in the lakes, but finally in New England we broke 80 degrees today. So
It's brutal right here. Like for me,
he's
it's
not
brutal.
happy.
I'm in my office. There's no air conditioning in this house.
We had 90 in Pennsylvania today, so.
Yes, yes. I was outside for a while, cutting barrels because I had to make some new flower pots, and we were out there for a while, and I was just like dying. I did go to the nursery, and we got look at Greg. We went to I went to the nursery this morning and picked up a bunch more flowers because I had to fill all those pots out there. So next time you come to the gardener, Mac has been doing a fantastic job. He got all the mulch, most of the mulch in today, and now I just brought him like a truckload of plants to. I don't think I told him I was going to be here. He's like, I'll be there tomorrow. Do these couple things. When he comes here tomorrow, he's going to have this truckload of flowers coming. So
I don't know. I was at an event today where I was in tuxedo and the lunch was outdoors in the 90-degree heat in black tuxedo.
That was a little rough.
Gross. Did you just cut off the pants?
I wanted to.
Rip
I
some
finally
sleeves
said
off?
this is enough, and I got back into a polo shirt and some khakis. That was a little better.
Yeah. Oh man, rough. Yeah, it's been nothing but 50 degrees and raining, and the one day you're like, we're all gonna get in a tuxedo is the day it's like 90 degrees. Greg, you got anything to say? Or you're just gonna look strangely at the camera? Greg, you guys have all met Greg, right? Yeah, he's
I'm just in a
amazing.
loud place right now. So I'm also with some wine club members here. We've got
Hey.
Lisa and Cass and old Atwater employees like Jenny, sorry. But yeah. Do I have
Where are
anything-
you at? J.R. Dill's place?
There were so many questions. We're down in Watkins at J.R. Dill, yeah.
Okay. All right. All right, that's a place to go later, I guess, if you guys are around.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see you guys later. But
Yeah.
no, nothing. You guys had so many questions tonight. That was a good day. I actually like that Alsatian traditional method is one of my favorites too.
Any questions or things to tell us, Greg, before we go?
I'm sorry, I'm loud in here. What was the question?
Any questions or things you need to tell us from the tasting room?
Oh, no. Things are good. I saw all the plants. They look beautiful. George is doing plant man stuff. So yeah, we got my birthday party on Sunday. So I know nobody's
Oh,
in
yeah.
town. You guys are in Maryland and elsewhere, but yeah.
Yeah, Greg's
Happy
band is playing on
birthday.
Sunday.
What was that?
Happy birthday, Greg.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah. Yeah, I'm liking all of the new wines that are coming out too. I think Wes is doing a really good job. I like the direction that things are going. That new orange wine, that Pinot Gris. I tried everything out of barrel as well. The Pinot Noir, the 22, I think Wes said he wanted it to age 3 years in bottle, but that it's big and reminds me more of a West Coast Pinot. That's really nice.
All right. Well, I
Yeah.
guess we'll let all you guys go.
Yeah.
Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it. You know, I guess I don't know when the next will be the next club one. I don't know how often we're doing them now, but we'll let you know. They gotta get more of these club members to come for it. Nobody can
The
Get
next one
themselves
is
out a
gonna
beautiful day.
be in December.
December. Okay.
Right.
We'll go over the harvest then, and I'm sure Wes will be there for that one. So you can hound him with any other questions you might have. But thank you guys all for coming tonight. I guess I got all these glasses of wine to finish. I don't know if I will. I guess I not finish all of these, but they're all here. Thanks a lot. I appreciate
Yeah,
it. We'll see you
thanks.
guys
Thank you,
soon.
We have a bottle or two we're gonna have to pump so we don't waste it.
Oh, okay. Well, you know,
We're not drinking at all.
call some friends over. Where's the family?
And if
We
you
should.
do
All the
visit,
neighbors.
make sure you
All the
visit on a
neighbors,
Thursday
okay.
night. George's
Thursday night.
cocktails are
Yeah,
incredible.
come for some cocktails.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be there. See you in a couple of weeks.
All right, we'll see you guys. Thank you all for
Bye, bye,
coming.
happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Yeah, see you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Leave.
All right, bye, George.
Okay, bye. I gotta figure out how to leave too. Where do I end? There we go. Bye.